I'm Grace Torie, and you're listening to That Girl the Podcast. Grab a beverage of choice and settle in, because the new episode is starting now. Hey guys, what is up? It's your girl Grace Torie, and I am back with a very special podcast episode. This one is super special and super exciting because I have my first guest on here, which is the lovely Violet Mizzi from Vibin With Vii. So she's here with us today. If you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, you're going to get the full video as well as the audio of us chatting. But I'm really, really excited. So yeah, Violet, how are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me. Please don't mind my hair. It's the weekend, so we rock a bun. We don't really do too much, but I'm doing wonderful. I actually have something crazy that I wanted to tell you, and for me, it's crazy. This morning, like literally like 20 minutes ago, I was just getting ready, eating my breakfast, and where my apartment looks out to, it's like a historical site. So it's just land. There's no buildings there, which is really, really nice. They can't build on it. But I was looking out and my fiance goes, "Oh my God, you need to see this. There's a coyote just like roaming around." I think it just killed something, but it's just roaming around in daylight. And we're talking, this is like downtown Toronto. This is a city. Like there's not normally coyotes just like chilling anywhere. And I'm like, oh my God, what is happening? So I felt like I was on the Discovery Channel for about 20 minutes just watching it. But everything else is really good. How about you?
I'm good. We literally have a coyote pack that lives in our neighborhood. So I'm like, I'm on the opposite side of the world. I like don't take my dog out without a leash because I'm terrified. But that's
Yeah,
crazy. Yeah,
fair enough.
we're good. I'm also rocking the weekend claw clip and sweatshirt. So, I think the our my listeners are used to it over here. I'm never really dressed up. I'm always looking like I'm here for a slumber party. So
I love it. That's so comfy. That's how I like to live. If I could, Monday to Friday, rock a bun, an oversized sweater, and some yoga pants, totally would, but I can't for my job. So I definitely relish in it on the weekend.
for sure. Even when I film right after my job, I change into sweatpants and I'm like, guys, you know the drill. It's been a long day.
Yeah, like sometimes I'll leave like my cuter tops on, but I'm rocking on the bottom where no one can
Oh, for
see.
sure.
Yoga pants, sweatpants, whatever I can get my hands on.
For sure, 100%. So to get things started, as you probably saw all over social media, it is, I believe it's International Women's Month. So
Yes.
we had International Women's Day last week. So to kick things off, I thought I would ask you some fun questions about, women in your life. So the first one is, who is a strong woman in your life that you look up to?
Yeah, honestly, it would probably be, I feel like I have two. It would be my mom and my sister. So my mom growing up was always the type of person that like she's working full time, but she's always up in the morning making sure like my dad has his lunch and his breakfast. She sees him off to go to work. And then she's hanging out with me, making sure that I'm ready to go to work, always packing me like lunches and like cute things like that. And then she's always home after work, making dinner, cleaning, like cooking. She's also like the biggest part that, I mean, a lot of moms do all of that stuff, but the biggest part that always inspired me about her is that like she's so handy. Like my mom, of my mom and my dad, she is the fixer. Like if something's wrong with the house, she's busting out her toolkit. She's fixing flooring. She's fixing piping, whatever she can do. She's ripping up like all the stone in the backyard and redoing it. Like she's painting. She was the fixer. My dad will just say was the money maker. And it just inspired me growing up so much because it always made me want to be that independent. And I love my fiance, but like just like the fact that like I can do things on my own and I'm not always depending on like certain things to be done by a man. I am nowhere near what my mom does. I wish that I would have paid more attention to everything that she did growing up. So I didn't take that on as much, but I definitely grasped that independence and held on to it and always thought I want to do things for myself and make sure that like I can be successful independently without depending on anybody else, whether it's a friend, family, a partner. And then the other thing that really has made me is growing up watching her be so just extroverted and her so friendly. Like I can remember as a kid asking her, how do you know so many people? Like, how do you have so many friends? And she laughed and she's like, I don't. I just like I meet people every time we go somewhere. So like she'd take me to the park and then all of a sudden she's like chatting up the mom that's there and I'm playing with the daughter. And the next thing you know, we're friends and we have play dates together because she just would talk to people wherever we went. And I used to be really, really shy actually when I was very small and like cling to her. But then as I grew up, just watching how she made it seem so easy to just talk to other people and like just be nice to people all the time, that as I grew up I kind of became that, and I became that outgoing person. And then even in high school, like I remember my friends being like, how do you know so many different people everywhere you go? And I'm like, well, because like when I'm at work, like I worked at a mall, like one of the main malls that we had in our city. I'm like, I just talk to people. People come in and I just start making friends with them. And I worked at a movie theater for like 3 years. So I'm like, I just make friends with everybody that comes in, especially if they're like around my age. I'm definitely like a girl's girl. Like I'm that girl that's like, I'll go up to a random person and be like, "Oh my God, I love your shirt. It's so cute. Like looks so good on you." Or I think your hair is so pretty. Like I'm definitely out there giving compliments because I feel like there's too much hate when it comes to women hating other women, and then what's portrayed in the media. So I'm definitely a girl's girl, and I feel like that opens up more opportunities for me to meet people because I'm just so willing to talk to people. And then my sister, I feel like I've talked for so long, so I'm sorry. And then my sister has always been fighting the norm. Like everything that people, the traditions that you think, like, I hate to say this, but like graduating high school and things like that. Like my sister was always fighting against the grain. Like she just wanted to do what she wanted to do. And when I was younger, I was like, well, like that's a little bit much, whatever. But as I've gotten older, like I have a greater appreciation for it because like she dropped out of high school and started working right away. She didn't want to be in high school anymore, but then eventually she got her GED and then she went into post-secondary school and she got a degree in event planning. She had kids when she was very young, which is part of the reason why she ended up going back and then doing some schooling. But like I've watched her, even though having kids at a young age, flourish and just become this like all powerful woman. Like she works full time, but she also has this like mad big side hustle where she's got a company and it's called That's So Crafty. And she basically like is one of those people that's like making mugs and like making keychains and all these different things. And like when I say it, I'm downplaying it so much, but she makes all of these different things and then sells them online, kind of like not through Etsy, but basically the same sort of idea. And first it was just selling to a couple friends. And then eventually she actually had like businesses approach her and ask her if she can make specific thing like in swag for their companies. So she's blossomed in that. And on top of doing both of those things, she has two now teenagers, one that's in cheer and one that's in hockey. And her son that's in hockey is in like one of the higher ranks that he can be as a 13-year-old. So every single weekend, she's out like traveling to different cities, taking him to like every single sporting event. Then she's taking my niece to every single cheer competition that she has. So she never stops. She's very like go, go, go and a go getter. And just like I value and appreciate that so much because like I'm a go getter as like, somebody that's in a relationship but without kids. But the fact that she can do so much with her kids and have her full-time job and have her business, like I'm like, I don't understand how you do it. Like, how do you manage what she does? So those are probably the two most inspirational women in my life. What about you?
Oh, I was gonna say, I actually am it's very similar to you. My dad was like the money maker. Like he was always traveling doing that. So my mom did everything. She would clean the house, do all the repairs on the house, take us everywhere. And I have two siblings, so we were busy. So it's like my sister was dancing and I was doing karate and my brother was doing gymnastics. And so we were all going there. We had a horse farm where we had 20 horses and she was taking care of all of them by herself. Like, and
Wow.
on top of that, she's really extroverted. We were going to church 2 times a week. Like, she homeschooled me. So there was so much going on and she just always handled it with such grace. And it very similar to what you said. It was very inspiring to make me more independent. Almost,
Mhm.
I feel like it's almost to a fault because like I'll ask Josh to do something and if he doesn't do it within the first 5 minutes, I'm like, I'll just do it. And then I didn't do
That's
it.
me.
Yeah. And then like I'm like mad at him because he didn't do it, but it's like I also just did it when he could have done like so I'm
Yeah.
almost a little too independent, but I agree. And then my older sister, she almost did the opposite of me. Like I'm the non-traditional one. So the opposite of what you said, where she went to high school, married her high school sweetheart, got a degree in nursing. She's a nurse now. She's her second baby's on the way. Like she did everything quote unquote more traditional. I mean, she works and she her husband and her both work and have amazing jobs, but outside of that, it was a very traditional trajectory for her career path.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm like, my family kind of looks at me like, oh, she's kind of out there. Like, oh, she's just a little, they like to call me a hippie. They're like, oh, she's a little hippie. Like, she's just like finding her way. Like, and I'm like,
Yeah.
guys, I'll be fine. Like, don't worry about me. So I think for her though, she's the older sister, so she's very bossy.
Yes.
So she's very, very bossy. So she just like growing up, I would almost take it. I would get so offended because I'm very sensitive. I'd be like, you're being so mean, like you're bullying me. But now that I'm older, I'm like, wow, she just doesn't take it from anyone. Like
Yeah.
he just tells people how it is, and if they don't like it, they don't like it. And it's like so inspiring to me. Like when she was negotiating her first job coming out of college, she's in nursing, so as we know in America, the pay is a little not where it should be. And
Yep.
they sent her salary. She was literally still in her last semester of college, and she told him, she said, "This isn't high enough." She was just like,
What?
"No, I this isn't high enough." And countered, and she got the higher one. And I was like, oh my God. Like I am with my master's, which is supposedly like higher or whatever, and I'm still scared to negotiate salaries. And she was in her last semester of undergrad, just like, nope, that's not enough. Like in this job that's everyone wants to do. She went into NICU. So that's like what everyone wants to do. So I'm like, wow, that's really, it's just inspiring to see that. And they have like a house, and it's just things that for me seem so far away that they've accomplished.
Yeah.
I definitely look at them, but I want to go back to kind of how you mentioned your sister had a side hustle and that was really like inspiring to you. I actually would love to like talk about that because as we know on my podcast, I talk a lot about what your goals are and just making whatever you want to do possible no matter what. So even if you have to work a full-time job, you can still have a side hustle and things like that, even though it may seem impossible. So how do you just stay motivated to get it all done? And like how did your sister inspire you to do that? What have you picked up on your own? And just tell me more about that.
Yeah, so for me, I don't even know where my motivation sometimes comes other than the fact that like I just want to have something of my own. And I've always wanted to, and I just never really knew what that looked like. So if we go a little bit backwards, I originally went into post-secondary school for culinary. So I had a big long-term vision that I wanted to go to culinary school. I wanted to specialize more in the pastry side of things. I love cooking, but pastry is like my forte. I worked in various jobs, working in kitchens and family owned bakeries. I worked at a casino. I worked at a resort. I worked at a hotel. So I had a lot of experience, but my long term goal was to always one day open up my own bakery. And like at one point I wanted to like make wedding cakes because I loved the thought of making somebody feel so happy on such a special day. And it always felt like something that was so far away from me and so out of my hands. And at some points it was maybe closer than I ever thought that it would be, but I never really pursued it to the full extent where I should have or where I could have. And then eventually I lost my passion. But it was always in the back of my mind that I just wanted to have something of my own. I wanted to have something that I could be proud of and say, this is what I've done, this is what I've achieved. And what that looks like for me now is my podcast. Even though I'm not monetizing that, my motivation still lies in the fact that like I want to have something of my own. And this is something that is my own. Like it's my own podcast. Like I didn't pay somebody to teach me how to podcast. I didn't pay somebody to teach me how to edit my software. I didn't pay somebody to learn how to even do anything to do with a podcast. I just one day decided that this is what I was going to do. And I put my blinders on and stayed laser focused and did a bunch of research and tried to figure out what that was going to be. And now it is where it is. I'm actually almost at 5,000 downloads, which is amazing for me. I don't know how many episodes I'm at now, but I've made big movements in the last like just short of a year. And what constantly motivates me for that every day is just knowing that this is mine and I can choose to do what I want, which means that if I want to put more effort into it this weekend, then I know it'll be more successful. But if I don't want to, I'm okay with that too. If I'm like, oh, you know what, I just want to have a chill weekend, I don't want to work too much on my podcast, I know that I'm the only driving factor on what's going to make this successful and what's going to keep pushing that mark. And I like having control of that. I'm a very like, I need to be in control of like everything. And it's just something that I never thought would be I would do and be mine. And then what that looks like in comparison to what I've watched like my sister do is she has just always been very like motivated and disciplined in the fact that if she wants something, she's going to go for it until she gets it and she succeeds. And if she puts her mind to something, she knows that she can do it. So she started off just doing small stuff. Like I don't even remember what it started off as. I think it was like she started off just making, I think, her own like Christmas ornaments. It might have been how it first started, or she just started making her own little knickknacks instead of like going out and buying like those personalized like Christmas ornaments or personalized mugs or personalized t-shirts. Actually, I think it started with a custom printing. She started doing that, and that's kind of where it's like I would much rather make it myself instead of paying somebody else to do it. And then the more that she made them, then it's like, oh, people would see like t-shirts that she'd have and like she did it. And then my mom helped a little bit too and made a couple with her. And then people were like, oh, I want that. Like I would pay for that. So then it started off with her just like selling to a couple people that she knew. And then, you know, making like things like the Christmas ornaments and different things. And people would see that and be like, oh, wow, that's so cool. And she's like, yeah, I made that. And they're like, oh, I want that. So it became one of those things where she was just selling to like friends and family and making things, or even gifting people. Like for Christmas or birthdays, she'd make cute personalized things for people. And then as those people purchased or were given those things, then other people would see that. And then it kind of just expanded like that, where it was a word of mouth. She wasn't even actually posting on social media at all about it on Instagram or Facebook, but she was getting orders out of like the wazoo. And then just watching how she started something that maybe was just so for her that became so much bigger. And it didn't matter if it was a Monday night or a Friday night or a Saturday night. She would just, after she's done, you know, making dinner for the kids, everyone's eating, everyone's just chilling, then she would just start doing her stuff. And like I'd go over and hang out at her house and she'd be like, hey, like you can come hang if you want, but like I have a bunch of orders that I have to do. So like I'm going to be working on my stuff, but like we can still chill, talk, we can put on a show, whatever. And watching that, regardless of what else was going on, she wanted to make sure she was dedicating time to that because she wanted to do that. Whether it's because she wanted to make money or she enjoyed it, she just set her mind to it. So that's kind of where my motivation and my drive kind of comes from, is watching her and then kind of wanting something to be my own.
For sure. I can definitely relate to that. I never really knew how to put it into words, but it's like the idea of like wanting something to be your own and also wanting to be independent so that like you do your thing, you have control over everything. I think that I can definitely agree because for me, being financially on my own is my official goal. Josh and I may be together and like maybe, one day get married and things like that, but I do want to financially be stable on my own. That's just like a goal I have.
Yep.
So the podcast is like a way to do that. And while I'm not monetizing it now, I feel like it's something that it does have the potential to grow. And then again, with like your sister saying like she just did it, I was trying to think about it. I don't think I've ever seen my sister not be confident that she can achieve something
Yeah.
ever. Like she's always just like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And that's something that is so motivating because I don't know about you, but I struggle with imposter syndrome where I just don't think I'm good enough. I can have all the qualifications in the world and I'm like, no, I'm not qualified. So
Yep, that's me.
yeah, exactly. Seeing my sister just like do it, even if she, straight out of college, she doesn't have any work experience other than her clinicals. And she's just like, no, I'm worth more than that. And like knowing that, her confidence is just so crazy. And every time she's ever done something like when I talk about her, she sounds like she's way older than me, but she's only 16 months older than me. So she's only 24.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. So, or is she 25? She just turned 25. Sorry, Faith. Um, just seeing how that confidence has gotten her to where she's at is so inspiring and like something that I think I definitely can use in my side hustle. Like you mentioned, how you just can appreciate that and see it more now and use it in your podcast. Switching the gears over to side hustle a little bit more. What advice do you have for women who want to start a side hustle, whether they have it all laid out and they just have to like pull the trigger on it, or they have an idea and they don't really want to act on it because they're scared, like any phase they're at?
Yeah, so honestly, the best advice that I could give anybody is just start now. You need to start somewhere. It doesn't matter if, like you said, if somebody has a whole plan laid out where they know exactly where they want to go, or if it's like a budding thought where you're kind of sitting and dwelling and going, oh, is this something that I could do? Maybe this would be really cool. Just start, because it's okay to start something and not succeed in it. But if you never give yourself the opportunity to even start it, you won't know if you will be successful in it. So if you have that budding thought, run with it, do research if you need to, talk to people, ask people questions. Like for me, like I just listened to so many podcasts prior to starting a podcast that like in my mind I was like, okay, maybe I could make this work because like I listened to this and they do this, so maybe I would do something similar to that. So like do a lot of research, figure out what your niche is and what you want. And even if you don't know your niche entirely, just do honestly research, just try and look things up and explore, and don't stop yourself and say that you can't do something without even trying. Trying is the best thing to do. I'm going to butcher this quote. My fiance is in the other room and he will laugh if he hears me, because I have a thing where like sayings, I mash them up, but it's like you miss every shot. What is it? You
I know
miss every shot you don't throw, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like if you don't try, you won't ever know if you're gonna fail.
I think it's from The Office. I think it's you miss 100% of the shots you don't take or something like that.
Thank you. Yes, that's exactly what
Yes.
I'm trying to get at. And
Yeah.
that's what I mean. Like if you never try, you will never know if you're successful. And the greatest successes are bred from failures,
Mhm.
because maybe you're like, oh, I want to try a podcast, and you try podcasting and that doesn't work. You can actually analyze everything about that and why that didn't work, and sometimes something else comes out of that and you're like, oh wow, oh, I can't podcast, but maybe I can start my own talk show, or maybe I can get into music, or, oh, you know what? I actually realized podcasting that I love doing social media. So maybe I could be a social media content creator, like, or a social media manager, and it breeds invention. So trying is the best advice that I could give anybody.
100%. I think everything that I have tried and failed at has given me a new tool that I can use in the next thing. So like for podcasting, I've done YouTube forever and I never really put a ton of effort into it, and I'm at like under 1,000 subscribers. So I'm still, I kind of put it on the back burner, but the tools that I spent hours figuring out, like how to edit a video, how to edit audio, has now helped me with the podcast. And I think the one thing I would add as someone who has ADHD, and I know we talked about this, so I hyperfixate and I give up on things after a couple months, is to not quit too early if you don't think it's working out and give yourself a fair shot.
Yep.
So neither of us, both of us are right at a year, a little under a year that we've done the podcast. And right now it's more of a passion project. It's not like a job where we're getting paid or anything. And some people would view that as not successful and they would have quit by now.
Yep.
But I would say that you need to give it a fair shot. You can't just say, oh, I'm not making money. And that can't be like your main motivation behind it, because even though that's not what's happening right now, like we met through the podcast and I consider that like successful, and all the other
Yep.
people I've met and all the things I've learned. And, every time I get a new follower, I have a little dance in my head. Like it's things like that that make it successful to me. So just basically giving yourself a fair shot. With podcasting specifically, I heard that it takes about 2 years to make it full time, which would make sense. We're about almost to the 1 year. So 2 years is a long time. And I think a lot of people would do 2 months and be like, okay, I'm not getting anywhere with this. I have 20 listeners, like on
Yep.
to the next thing. And you can't do that, especially
No.
with something where you want to be in it for the long run. So
And for me, I measure my success in this podcast, and I'm sure you could probably agree, is that like I feel successful just in the fact that I've lasted this long, that
Oh,
it's been a year.
100%. I every time I put an episode up, I'm so proud of myself because I'm like, I thought that I would just hyperfixate and move on.
Me
So
too.
I'm still going, guys. Like, I'm still proud of myself.
I agree 100%. I'm the exact same way. I'm like, oh, I am the same way. I think that if I put a little bit of effort into something and I'm like, oh, I really like it, and then it's not going exactly where I want it to go, then I'm just like, okay, on to the next. But this, I was like, I'm just gonna keep going and going and going and see where this takes me and do this as long as I possibly can. And if it goes and becomes more successful and I can monetize it, then I will be so happy because it's so much fun and I love doing this.
Exactly. It's like if the monetization comes, that's fun. That's fun. That's fine. That would be awesome. But if not, like I'm chilling. I'm totally fine. I genuinely love podcasting. It's like an outlet for me. I love being able to help women. I love being able to talk about things that interest me. So like that's enough. And just finding that thing that keeps you going is like so important.
I have zero hobbies, so this is my hobby.
100%. I know. I'm like, I go see my horse. Sometimes I crochet. Like that's it.
That's more than me. I'm like, I need a hobby. I'm like, podcasting, it'll be my hobby because I love listening to them. So I'm gonna do it, and it has. And maybe one day I'll get into something else. I'm trying to learn how to golf right now. So maybe that'll be my other hobby.
My hobby has been trying to make friends, so I'll let you know if that works out.
Yes, please tell me. That's so funny.
Okay. So switching gears a little bit, this podcast is all about becoming the best version of whatever, you are working towards in your version of that girl. So I have to ask, if you don't mind sharing, what is your version of that girl that you're working towards?
So I don't want to sound like I'm trying to be the legit that girl and the matcha
Oh,
girly,
I'm not.
but but that girl and that version that I want to be is the version that gets up early
Mhm.
and Pelotons every day because I'm doing that right now. I want to be the girl that gets up and puts fitness number one. That takes the time to focus on eating healthy, good food, Right now, I'm working with an online coach. So I've actually cut out gluten and dairy. And I think when we talked last, I told you I was just starting. So I'm going on to week 3 actually right now of no gluten and dairy. I'm really focusing on not eating processed food. So just a real good food. So that girl is constantly changing in my mind of what I want that to be. But as of current, it's the girl that wakes up first thing in the morning. She does some cardio. She already has her lunch planned.
Mm.
She, makes a quick breakfast. She takes the time to get ready in the morning and maybe do my hair a little bit. I always do my makeup, but trying to take time to give myself to do the things like that are really important to start my day on the most positive note. And the girl that takes time to spend with her fiance and to make time for my friends, but also to make time for my podcast. And that's a big thing for me in 2023 is I really want to try to find more of a balance, because last year I was so ecstatic about starting the podcast that I was like shoving, scheduling as many recordings with people as often as I could. Sometimes I was recording like 3 times a week, and it's good and I enjoy that, but it also feels very overwhelming while I'm putting it into like my regular work week and trying to edit and do all of these things. So the new version of that is going to be I'm going to start trying to record actually only on the weekends, so Saturdays and Sundays with people. Unless somebody absolutely can't record on a weekend, then of course I'm going to record during the week. But I want to give during the week after work. It's already short enough, and there's only a couple hours, and I really want to dedicate that to eating healthy and making dinners with my fiance and just spending a little bit more time with him and working out some more because I am working out in the morning and then working out at night as well. I'm very focused on having a wedding body because I'm newly engaged. So that girl is a fitness girly. She's a fitness girly. She puts her health first, her mental health, her physical health, and her relationships before everything else. So that's what that girl is for me right now.
I love that. I definitely think I'm in a similar space. I probably this past week, so I'd say about a week ago, I cut out gluten, dairy, and refined sugar because
Oh,
yeah, it's been really hard and I've been really cranky because, sugar, love that. But so I think I'm definitely in a similar space to you and like trying to figure out how to just fit that into like my schedule on top of everything else. And, I can really relate to when you just started the podcast wanting to do everything all the time because I did that. I've struggled with that still. I still am a workaholic and like I went through really bad burnout last year to
yeah.
the point that I was like not like my brain was just not remembering things. Like I was always sad and tired and not happy. So I was like, something's got to give. So here we are now trying to fix that. So I definitely like really resonated with trying to make time for everything and not just be so top heavy with like one thing
Yeah.
and just making time for like Josh for me is big and like trying to make more friends here since all of mine moved away, RIP, and make those friendships and just have lasting ones that aren't going to move away now that we're out of college and that's not as common for people to really do. So I definitely really resonate with that and like the idea that like that girl changes all the time. Like you said, right now for me, it's that girl. I think a lot of people think that they get set on one person and then they have to become them, or it's like they're a
Yeah.
failure, things like that. And it's like, no, my girly may be focusing on health right now, but I also want like this, XYZ. Like I want my podcast to be successful. I want to build a house one day. I want to own a business that helps nonprofits. Like I have all these ideas that that girl does that I want to work towards. But right now, she's really focusing on her health because like if you don't improve everything, then like you're not going to improve at all, but you can't do it all at once.
Yeah, I feel like it has to be in stages. Like
Yeah.
It's one of those things that like baby steps, like you can transition and do all of these things, but if you try to do everything at once, then you almost feel like you're going to be overwhelmed, even though even if it's positive changes. Like me personally, if I try to change too many things at once, I get overwhelmed. Like even when I got told that I have to cut out gluten and dairy. I do not eat that much dairy. And when I do, I know that I'm going to die.
Yeah.
So I know what the consequences are. And sometimes I'm willing to put myself in that position for, a good sized pizza or something. But it was the gluten that kind of like really overwhelmed me that I'm like, okay, you're saying I can't have dairy. Okay, now you're saying that I can't have gluten as well on top of dairy. It felt very overwhelming. And it's like taking it in steps and taking it in strides and knowing that it's something that you can do, but it takes a little bit more effort. So everything has to be done in stages. Like right now, like I said, I'm the girly that's focusing on my fitness because the long-term goal is because I want to have a wedding bod. But like
Mhm.
I'm gonna be in my wedding planning era soon. So that girl is gonna be the girl that dedicates so much time to wedding planning. She's not there yet, but she's coming. And I know she's a brewing back there because the thoughts are brewing. And I'm like, I want to do this, this, and this. And I'm Pinteresting and I'm saving TikToks and all these videos. I'm sending myself stuff. It's the greatest part about having two Instagrams. And I don't know if you ever do this, but
Oh.
I send myself videos to my other account all the time that I know I want to look at. So like I'm doing all these things, but she's not my main focus right now. She's coming later, but it stages. It stages. Otherwise, I think I would burn out. I would crash and burn. And with my podcast, I think I kind of pushed myself a little bit too much last year, and I want to continue on a really healthy trajectory of being successful and content stacking and doing things like that so that I can have that time.
Mhm.
But I don't want to kill myself doing it. I want it to be
100%.
fun. I don't want to lose the fun in it.
Mhm. No, 100%. I think a lot of people say, and I used to be one of those people that said, like, don't have a job in what you're passionate about. Like, if you love writing, don't become a copywriter. If you love this, and I was like, yeah, don't do that. But now that I'm like a little older, I don't know if I would necessarily say that because it's not about having the job, it's about overdoing it.
Yeah.
So as long as you're not burning yourself out, then it's okay. So yeah, I can definitely agree with that. So I do have one final question slash topic I want to talk about,
Yep.
which is something that's really big. I feel like I struggle with it a lot, and a lot of women in their 20s struggle with it a lot. And you mentioned it, we kind of touched on it a little bit when you mentioned going to culinary and kind of finding your way, but how did you know what career path you want to go down, and did you always know? Because I know you work full time in was it emergency and safety, correct?
Health and safety.
Health and safety. Okay, we call it emergency and safety at my work, so that was a little
No worries, no worries.
yeah.
Um, honestly, like it's something that I said this to somebody else the other day that we are letting children go into school until they're like 17 and then we're just releasing them to the wild. And I
Mhm.
know we're the only mammal that actually like babies their child and takes care of their child until they're 18, where in the wild, like bears, other things like that, they look after their children for like 3 4 days a month, 2 months, and then they're on their own. We do take a longer time. But with saying that, and the whole purpose why I'm saying that is 17-year-olds, I don't understand how they know what they want to do with the rest of their life,
Mhm.
because I didn't. And it doesn't matter how many career classes you put me in, or one-on-one sessions with a counselor of what you want to do long term. I don't know how I'm going to survive in the wild at 17. I have no idea what I want to do. And the fact that we push people to go into post-secondary school with sometimes little to no idea of what they want to do, and we force it and say that in order for you to be successful you need to go to post-secondary, you need to get a college or a university diploma, otherwise you will never find a job. And that has become reality in a lot of places. You do need post-secondary, but I feel like people need to take more time to really focus on what they want to do. And if that means that out of high school, you go into just something, you just start working somewhere, you get a job, and you start to figure out what works for you. Because I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was in high school. I had no idea. And I stressed so much because I'm like, oh my God, everybody else knows what they want to do. And I don't know what I want to do. What is wrong with me? Why don't I have it all figured out? Everybody else has it all figured out. But meanwhile, nobody else had it all figured out. It was either somebody told them that maybe they'd be successful in something, or their parents were like, you should be a lawyer, or you should be a doctor, or you should be a nurse. So it's the impressions of other people that maybe you had an idea, but I don't know about you, but so many people that I know that have gone into post-secondary school, they're actually like, if they've been out of school for, let's say, 5 or more years, they're not actually always doing what they went into school for. So it's like, yes, sometimes it can be a building block and it can help you be successful in what you end up doing long term, but sometimes we're wasting time and money to go on a post-secondary school for something that we're not going to do. Now, that's not always the case, but for me, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew that I liked to cook. I knew that I always had fun in the kitchen. I grew up, my mom was always cooking, so she was always pulling me into the kitchen, teaching me how to do things. So I've always known how to cook since I was young. So I'm like, well, I guess this is what I should do. It's the only thing I know how to do. I'm not good with math. I'm not good with science. Like, I don't think I can go into something like that. I never thought I should go to business school, but it would have made so much more sense because I did long term want to own my own business. So like I wish that somebody would have been like, you need to go into business, not culinary. But I went into culinary and I really enjoyed it. It was a great like stepping stone for me to figure out things. It gave me a lot of good fundamentals that I've been able to pull into other roles that I've done over the years. But it was a starting point. It was a great opportunity for me to travel. I love to travel too. So it gave me that. It gave me, oh, I get to have fun and make food and bake things, which I loved baking. And then it also gave me the opportunity to travel because you can go anywhere. Like I mentioned earlier that I've worked at so many places, but like in terms of where I physically worked, I've worked multiple different places across Ontario, but I actually lived in Banff, Alberta, for about a year working at the Fairmont there. I worked in Turks and Caicos for about 2 months at a Club Med. I have worked at casinos, hotels. Like I've gone cottage country here in Ontario. I've had so many opportunities to travel, which has been the best part of it. But I hit a point where it was like, I'm losing my passion because now this has became work and it's no longer fun.
Mhm.
And then I felt like I was back to square one, like just like I was in high school again. And I'm like, I have no idea what I'm gonna do. And it took me a long time, and I don't know how I got to where I got with health and safety, but health and safety is definitely where I belong. The more I do it every single day, I'm like, how did I never see this before? But it was because I job hopped. I went through probably, I want to say like 2, maybe even 3 years where like I was trying just job after job after job, figuring out what works for me. And then I just went, you know what? I want to get into admin because I like organizing, I like filing, I like being on the computer. I think that I'd be good at it. But that was never a long-term goal that I'm like, I don't want to stay in admin forever. That's just not for me. I get bored. So I started in that. And then this job that I was at previous to the one that I'm currently at, health and safety came up. And I'm like, oh, I think I'd be really good at that. Like I've done health and safety and been on like health and safety committees at like every job that I've ever been at. And I'm like, oh, maybe I think I could be really good at this. I did my interview, went really well. And then I ended up doing it for 3 years. And it was like, this is where I belong. And then when I thought about it more this year, actually, it makes so much more sense. I care so much about people and I just want to help people. And what that looks like for me is making sure that people are safe every day at the job that they do. And it even goes deeper than that to the fact that my mom actually got hurt on the job when I was in high school and she never recovered. She never went back to work. So, this very strong, like I was talking about, independent woman that was unstoppable that got ripped away very quickly, and it changed her completely, and I still admire her, and she's still an inspiration to me for everything that she had done up until that time. But all it took was one accident that happened because she was working by herself and something broke, and it changed her life entirely, changed my life entirely. And that is my why. If I sit here and say, why am I in health and safety? That's my why, because I want to try to prevent people from getting hurt at work so their life doesn't change like my life did or my mom's life did. So it's hard to say, like, how do you help guide people and tell them like what they should go into, or how do you know what you should do? And I definitely don't have the answer for that. But if you want to sit there and look internally, you should always be asking, what is your why? Like, what is your why for doing what you're doing? And if you don't know what it is, then maybe it's not the right fit for you. Or if you don't like the answer that you have, like if your why is because you want to make money, I mean, that's fine because that's a really good why. But if you don't like that that's your why, then maybe you need to look elsewhere and see what other opportunities are out there. But the best thing that I can say is like find a job that you enjoy doing and you enjoy going to every single day. It doesn't have to be the love of your life. It doesn't have to be your passion, because your passion can easily be clouded and stripped from you if you do too much. And that's what happened to me, because something that I thought I was going to do for the rest of my life, I had a 5 year plan, a 10 year plan when it came to culinary and pastry. And that stopped because I went into a couple jobs that were really shitty, that I got treated like shit, and I felt undervalued, that I went, this isn't for me, because basically the people that I'm working for are telling me that I'm not good enough. But I was good enough and I could have still done so much more with it, but it got taken away from me and made me question everything. So it was better that I do that on the side and I enjoy doing it for my friends and for my family, just like it started, instead of doing that as a career, because it just didn't make any more sense for me.
Yeah, I think that that's exactly what everyone needs to hear, because I can sit here and say you don't know until you know all day, but you don't know until you know. And I think I had a very similar experience, and I mean, I love my job, but I don't know if it's what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. Like, I love it. I don't know if I'm going to be in sales forever. Like, I could do something different for the company. Things are, I don't know. But
You have so much time. You have so
yeah.
much time to figure it out, and so do I. And that's the other thing where like you're a bit younger than me, but like our generations are the same in the fact that like our parents would go to a job and stay with it for longevity and for security and be fucking miserable and hate their life. And I
Mm,
don't ever want that for myself. I want longevity, of course, but if that means that I have to move to a different company so that I can make sure that I'm still happy, I would much rather go to a job and be new, like I'm new at my current job, and enjoy it than be stuck at the company that you're working at that you hate, that you're like, I don't, my values don't align. And sometimes you start at a job and it makes sense, but then after a while it could still be the same career that you want to do, but after a while your values no longer align. And to me, I don't think that it's best to just stay in a job forever just because. If it doesn't make sense and you're not enjoying it and your values don't align, then it is okay to move on. But our parents, and I know my parents even, they think I'm crazy for switching jobs as many times as I have. But I'm like, I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to make sure that I'm happy. Plus, when I'm switching jobs, I'm always going up in pay. I'm not going from one job to less. Like if I'm gonna make a change, I'm gonna make a change that's gonna make sense successfully, financially, just overall. But it's okay. We don't have to be stuck in something and think that that is our life and that we have to be there. We can always change. You just have to have the power, the drive, and you just have to do it.
It's hard because I know for me, like, in the people who are just recently graduating college, those older generations tell you and kind of hammer into you, you're going to get a job and you have to stay with that job for minimum 5 years because it's
Yep.
going to look bad if you leave. You need the experience, XYZ, you need the pay, blah, 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 blah. There's so many reasons that they tell you. But it's like the way I look at it is we're not guaranteed anything. And the way that COVID has like kind of shaped us, like we really, I know for me, I think about like how temporary life is a lot. And so 5 years is a lot to give to a company that if you don't like it, if you hate your life every day, if you don't want to be there, if you're not doing what you want to do. And I understand like having to get the experience to make more money and things like that, like totally understandable. But at that like at that company in that exact situation, like if you hate it, then that's not necessarily the case. And like you said, my family, like the older generations, just do not get it.
No.
And
And if you're not moving up in a company, why are you going to stay? Like, that's a big thing for me, too. If a company does not have the opportunity for growth, I mean, yeah, you can stay in a company for longevity. Maybe if you stay, eventually you'll get small increases in pay. But if there's not an opportunity to move up, there's not opportunity for you to continue to be successful. You kind of hit this ceiling, and it's like, okay, now what? And it's like, all
yeah,
right, I'm just going to be this level for the rest of my life. And I'm not going to ever be able to make, more money, or I'm not ever going to be able to get more responsibility. And for me, that's something that I'm always challenged with is I actually, yes, money is a driving factor, but I want more responsibility. Give me a team that I have to look after.
yeah,
Give me, harder deadlines. Give me more work because I actually want that. Because sometimes you get stagnant. Sometimes you get bored and then you feel like you're living Groundhog Day and you're just like, it's the same day over and over and over and over again. And you're doing the same thing. And it's like, that's great if you can handle that, but I am somebody that I need challenge. Like I
yeah,
need you to throw something at me that's going to make me spin out of control. Like I have no idea what I'm doing, but it also makes my brain work and it makes me think and it makes me need to have to figure things out and be critical. And that's what I thrive for. I thrive sometimes in high chaos situations, but it's because the best outcomes come from that.
no, 100%. If something is too easy for me, I will underperform.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be challenged to do my best work, and I don't know why, I don't know how, but and it's not underperform to the point that it's bad. It's just I will be average at it.
Yeah.
But if you give me like a challenge, I will knock it out of the park. I will be number one every time, and I don't know why. So that's definitely something that I've learned I need in a job. Um, but yeah, without getting too far, off topic, it's just something that people don't understand that it's okay. It's okay to not know what you want to do, and you're not going to know until you figure it out. And a lot of times it's going to fall into your lap, like your position did. Like you had your why for a long time, but you
Yeah.
never really put it together until it fell into your lap, and then you said, "Wait a minute, like I've been wanting to do something similar to this without even knowing it." And that's what happens for a lot of people. And it won't happen until it happens. Like you just can't force it. All you can do is try and see what works and what doesn't.
Exactly. Trial and error. That goes back to everything that I've already said. Trial and error. If you don't try, you will never know.
Well, awesome. I don't want to keep you too long. So my final question is, where can everybody find you?
Yeah, so I am vibing with Vi. So that's Vibin with Vii on social media. So on Instagram, you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on YouTube as well, even though I do not post that much. You can find me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else that you find podcasts. If you don't mind linking everything,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
then check me out. We had a great episode where I got to interview. Oh, my camera's freezing. Just at the end, where I got to interview you, which was amazing. We had a great podcast that's out and live. So be sure to check Gracie out on mine too.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely check that out. It was a great podcast episode. And in a lot of ways, I feel like this was definitely a continuation of that conversation. So definitely go listen to that. Um, yeah, check her out on everything. I'll have the description down below. Thank you guys so much for listening. As you guys know, I upload on Wednesday and Sunday. Don't forget to leave a rating and review. It would mean the absolute world. And I will see you guys in my next podcast episode. Bye.
Bye.